Thanks for staying with NDTV. You're watching the Tuesday edition of the World Report with me, Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. In a strong and clear message from the world stage, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has called out state-sponsored terrorism in a veiled but unmistakable reference to pariah Pakistan. Now, speaking at the United Nations while inaugurating India's digital exhibition titled The Human Cost of Terrorism, Jaishankar said it's imperative to expose terrorism when it is backed by a state, fueled by extremism and spreads across borders. The exhibition, launched just a day before Pakistan takes over the UNSC presidency, showcases deadly terror attacks like the 1993 and 2008 Mumbai attacks and the recent Pahalgam strike as well. Well, they all point towards Pakistani-based groups. Jaishankar has urged the global community to act and not just remember the victims. Now, this comes as a loud call at the UN: no impunity for terrorists, no tolerance for nuclear blackmail. Listen in.
Terrorism is one of the gravest threats to humanity. It is the antithesis of everything that the UN stands for: human rights, rules and norms, and how nations should conduct their dealings with each other. When terrorism is supported by a state against a neighbor, when it is fueled by the bigotry of extremism, when it drives a whole host of illegal activities, it is imperative to call it out publicly. And one way of doing so is to display the havoc that it has wreaked on global society. 5 weeks ago, the United Nations Security Council issued a strong condemnation of a particularly horrific act of terrorism in Pahalgam. It demanded that its perpetrators be held accountable and brought to justice. We have since seen that happen. What that response underlines is a larger significance of the message of zero tolerance for terrorism. The world must come together on some basic concepts: no impunity to terrorists, no treating them as proxies, and no yielding to nuclear blackmail. Any state sponsorship must be exposed and must be countered. By now, we know well that terrorism anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere.
The exhibition at the United Nations was organized by the Indian delegation, and what it exhibited was the human cost of terrorism across various strikes across the world. What India has been highlighting at the United Nations for several years now is the cost that India has also faced in terrorism, and they've tried to highlight that if you don't crack down on state-sponsored terrorism in clear indication of Pakistan, then it's a threat not just to India, but also to the region and to across the world as well. Now, we must understand some context here. The seriousness with which countries like even the United States took terrorist groups in Pakistan is relatively recent. Till 2001, Lashkar-e-Taiba was not designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States. They started taking it far more seriously after the 2001 attacks on US soil, which was the Twin Towers. So terrorism remains a major topic of concern for India. They've seen more headway, more attention is paid to India now because of what's going on in the world and because India has remained consistent on it. And this exhibition, again, is another point for India to emphasize. And the timing, like you said, is very important because it's this month, which has just started, where Pakistan takes on the presidency of the rotating UN Security Council.
India and US trade talks are in the final phase as there is a race to finalize trade pact by the 9th of July, which is in fact the deadline given by President Donald Trump to pause his tariffs on all countries. Trade talks between India and the US have hit roadblocks over disagreements on import duties for auto components, steel, and even farm goods as we speak. Now, this comes ahead of Trump's July 9 deadline, as I mentioned, to impose reciprocal tariffs and end the pause that he had initially imposed. Now, today, the White House said that a deal with India is, in fact, indeed very close. Listen in to spokesperson Caroline Levitt.
The president said that last week, and it remains true. I actually just spoke to our Secretary of Commerce about it. He was in the Oval Office with the president. They are finalizing these agreements, and you'll hear from the president and his team, his trade team, very soon when it comes to India.
And on China, how do we counter China on that front?
Yes, I mean, look, India remains a very strategic ally in the Asia Pacific, and the president has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, as you know, and he will continue to have that.
17 hours since the marathon voting session or the votorama began in the US Senate, the Senate hasn't yet passed Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill that would enact his domestic tax and spending agenda and also add an estimated $3.3 trillion to the national debt over the next decade itself. And no final vote seems to be in sight as well. Now, this comes as Republican leaders continue to grasp for ways to shore up support for President Donald Trump's big bill. While Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota acknowledged the Republicans are figuring out how to get to the end of the game. In fact, House Speaker Mike Johnson signaled the potential problem the Senate package could face when it is eventually sent back to his chamber for a final round of voting, which was expected later this week ahead of Trump's 4th of July deadline. Meanwhile, listen to what both Democrats and Republican senators had to say.
I sure think we do have the votes. I think we cannot let this moment pass to have the largest tax savings in American history. The average American family back home is going to save $1,000 a month when this bill passes. We're going to secure the border. Look, this is President Trump's legacy. If you supported President Trump, you should support this legacy. It's going to allow us to secure the border not just this year, but for years going into the future.
Giving a tax break to the richest people and most profitable corporations is a choice. And paying for it by kicking 17 million Americans off their health insurance is a choice.
After billionaire Elon Musk continued criticism of the One Beautiful Big Bill, US President Donald Trump has threatened to cut subsidies to Musk companies. In a post on his Truth Social account, Trump said that Musk would, quote, probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa, unquote, if his administration would cut subsidies to Musk's various companies, including Tesla and SpaceX. Now, this comes after Musk for weeks has criticized Trump's signature bill for its huge spending and trillions that, in fact, it would add to America's federal deficit. Even threatening to unseat the lawmakers earlier this morning who support the unpopular package, Musk has also warned that he would launch a new party, one he calls the American Party, as an alternative to the Democrat-Republican Uniparty, as he claims it to be, if lawmakers pass Trump's spending bill in the U.S. Senate. Staying with US, where American lawmaker Brandon Gill is facing online backlash after his recent post called for Indian-origin Democrat Zoran Mamdani to go back to the third world after the New York City mayoral candidate was seen eating rice with his hands in an old video. My colleague Parmeshwar Baba explains the details of this controversy and the fallout as well.
It started with a seemingly racist tweet and has snowballed into an all-out culture war. A sitting US congressman just told an Indian-origin mayoral candidate to go back to the third world because he ate rice with his hands. Believe it or not, this is where we're at in 2025. Zoran Mamdani, born in Uganda, raised in South Africa and the US, son of filmmaker Mira Nair, and now the man who just defeated Andrew Cuomo to become New York City's Democratic nominee for mayor. And this is the video that sparked a storm. Mamdani eating rice with his hands, speaking about solidarity with Palestine and his experience growing up in the global south. Now enter Brandon Gill, a Republican congressman from Texas who reposted this video with a caption, and I quote, "Civilized people in America don't eat like this. If you refuse to adopt Western customs, go back to the third world." This comment didn't just spark outrage, it has lit up the internet. Users have been quick to point out the irony because Brandon Gill is married to Danielle D'Souza, who's of Indian origin, and the daughter-in-law of none other than right-wing filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. And cue the memes with users posting photos of Dinesh D'Souza himself eating with his hands. But Danielle D'Souza Gill doubled down. She has posted saying, "I didn't grow up eating with my hands," further adding, "I'm a Christian MAGA patriot. My family in India uses forks too." So we're at a place where the act of eating with a spoon or your fingers has become a political litmus test for belonging in America. But behind this, is something deeper. Mamdani, as you know, is no political lightweight. With all the news you've seen over the last week, Republicans, including Trump, Nancy Mace, and Stephen Miller, are going hard after him. Trump called him 100% communist lunatic. Another congressman even floated the idea of denaturalizing him. But let's be clear, eating with your hands is not uncivilized. It's tradition in our country, in India, in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the Middle East, and frankly, across most of human history. So when a politician uses that to insult an opponent of color, it's not about table manners, it's about race, it's about power, and it is about exclusion.
Fulfilling his promise made to Syrian President al-Shara in Saudi Arabia, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order ending US economic sanctions on the country. A move that is likely to unlock investments in the country more than 6 months after the overthrow of former President Bashar al-Assad. Now, Trump's presidential order offers sanction reliefs to entities critical to Syria's development, the operations of his government, and, of course, the rebuilding of the country's social fabric. The Syrian government, meanwhile, has been under heavy US financial penalties since before the outbreak of the civil war back in 2011, almost 14 years now. However, this order does not rescind sanctions imposed on ousted former President Bashar Assad, his top aides, family members, and even officials who have been accused of human rights abuses in the country by Washington. Donald Trump's DOGE-led move to cut most of the US funding towards foreign humanitarian aid could very well cause more than 14 million additional deaths by 2030. In the next 5 years, that is, latest research published in the Lancet Medical Journal has revealed. Now, this includes over 4.5 million children under the age of 5 years, or around 700,000 child deaths per every year. Now, the funding cuts risk abruptly halting and even reversing, in some cases, 2 decades of progress in the health among vulnerable populations, the study has found. The report comes as dozens of world leaders are meeting in Spain's Sevilla this week for a United Nations-led aid conference, the biggest one the world has seen in a decade. Roughly 5 years since the Beijing-imposed national security law took effect, Hong Kong's last active pro-democracy party has been dissolved, the third such opposition party to be disbanded this year alone. The League of Social Democrats, an almost 2-decade-old or 20-year-old opposition party known for its street protest, has said it had made the decision after careful deliberation and to avoid consequences for its members. While authorities claim the national security law was needed in Hong Kong in order to restore order after a year of violent protests in 2019, critics still argue it is being used as a weapon to, in fact, demolish institutional opposition in the city. Shifting focus to the Russia-Ukraine war now, as Russian forces advance in their latest offensive against Ukraine, Moscow's forces claim to have seized all of Luhansk area, one of the 4 key regions Russia illegally annexed from Ukraine in September 2022. It's now become the first Ukrainian region to be fully occupied by Russia after more than 3 years of the grinding war that still, in fact, is continuing. Now, Russian forces have also captured a village in the Ukrainian region of Dnipropetrovsk for the first time in their 3-year offensive. Meanwhile, Russia also claims striking Ukrainian Navy's fuel supply facilities, production assembly and storage sites for attack drones, and ammunition depots in the past 24 hours alone. Meanwhile, a man who started a wildfire and then fatally shot 2 firefighters and wounded another in North Idaho has been identified as a 20-year-old transient who attacked the first responders after they asked him to move his vehicle, the sheriff said Monday. Now, the accused, named Wes Rowley, was living out of his vehicle, had once aspired to be a firefighter himself, and had only a handful of minor contacts with the area police. Meanwhile, officials have now announced the names of the firefighters killed and injured in the shooting. 2 veteran firefighters were killed in the shooting, while a third remains in critical condition. As we get you this bulletin, viewers, Rowley later killed himself, the sheriff said. Meanwhile, listen into what the authorities have to say on this gruesome incident.
It saddens me to announce that Battalion Chief Frank Harwood, 42 years old, has been a member of our department for 17 years, passed away in the line of duty yesterday. Chief Harwood is married, has 2 children. He is also a former Army National Guard combat engineer, so he's a veteran as well.
US President Donald Trump will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for talks at the White House next Monday. Now, this comes as the US leader has begun stepping up his push on the Israeli government to broker a ceasefire and a hostage agreement and bring about an end to the war in Gaza. Now, the trip will be Netanyahu's third to the White House since Trump returned to office in January and comes weeks after US struck key nuclear sites in Iran amid ongoing hostilities between Tel Aviv and Tehran in West Asia. Meanwhile, talks between Israel and Hamas have repeatedly faltered over a major sticking point, that being whether the war should end as a part of any ceasefire agreement or not. Till now, about 50 hostages remain captive in Gaza, with less than half believed to still, in fact, be alive. A quickly spreading wildfire in Southern California, the Juniper wildfire has spread at least 2,400 acres, prompting an evacuation order for over 5,000 people in the area. So far, 30% of the fire has been contained successfully. Meanwhile, the fast-growing wolf fire has also quickly grown to more than 2,400 acres itself. Now, this has forced evacuations and road closures in the area as well. These wildfires are among dozens that have erupted in the region over the past 72 hours alone. Officials, meanwhile, warn that the fiery events of the last 3 days are a prelude to, in fact, what is to come over the next few months as the state moves from an usually dry winter and spring into what is expected to be a hot summer and fall. And a sizzling start to July is on the cards for China, where nationwide temperatures are poised to climb to almost 3 degrees Celsius above historical averages in the first week of July itself. The local Met Observatory has issued a yellow high temperature alert for the region. By afternoon, Xinhua Station recorded its 9th highest temperature day, above 35 degrees Celsius, that is, this summer, marking the highest number of hot days ever recorded in June at this station in China. Now, according to the forecast, this weekend temperatures could even approach or even cross 40 degrees Celsius, an exceptionally rare occurrence for this time of the year for this part of the world. Tropical storm Flossie has strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane of Mexico's Pacific coast, with maximum sustained winds of up to 130 kilometers per hour. Flossie was expected to skirt the coast for a few days while dropping rain on several Mexican states. Flossie is forecast to strengthen further over the next 38 hours before eventually weakening over cooler waters. While its center is forecast to remain offshore, rainfall of up to 150 millimeters was likely for parts of the Mexican states, with the possibility of life-threatening flooding and mudslides, especially in steep terrain. Portugal, like much of Europe, has been experiencing a heat wave in recent days, as we have been covering here on NDTV. But another rare weather phenomena also gripped many beachgoers trying to survive the warm temperature by the sea. The roll cloud hit several beaches along the Portuguese coast. It's a rare Met phenomenon occurring where air masses of contrasting temperatures and sea breezes interact. Now, what does this do? Well, it forms a thick wave of cloud. These tube-shaped clouds, as you see on your screen, move horizontally, resembling a giant wave, but unfortunately have nothing to do with tsunamis. And well, it's time we step into a short break. Much more on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report on NDTV. Viewers, India is on the brink of a satellite-based internet revolution. Dr. Pawan Goenka, chairman of InSpace, or India's space regulator, has confirmed that SpaceX Starlink is close to securing final approvals in the country. With OneWeb and SES also in the mix, rural and remote regions could soon gain high-speed connectivity from the space. Meanwhile, NDTV's science editor Pallav Bagla has the details for you. Saudi Arabia's in the world of sport, Saudi Arabia's Al Hilal have sent English giants Manchester City crashing out of the Club World Cup, snatching a shock 4-3 victory in extra time, that too in the biggest upset of the tournament so far. The match finished 2-2 at full time on Monday, but at the end of an eventful extra time, Marcos Leonardo grabbed the winner and pulled off one of the greatest wins in Middle Eastern football history, as it's being hailed now. The Saudi club now advance to the quarterfinals of the tournament, where they will face Brazilian club Fluminense, ensuring a non-European team will reach the last four. Former Indian cricket captain Mahendran Singh Dhoni has filed an application to officially register the trademark Captain Cool. Well, it's a moniker he attained due to his calm demeanour during stressful moments of cricket matches. The trademark application was filed in June 2023 and was accepted and advertised by the Trademarks Registry Kolkata office in June this year. The trademark was in fact published in the journal on the 16th of this month to invite objections. If no objection or opposition is raised to the trademark by anyone within 120 days or around 4 months from June 16, it will very well be granted. Members of the British rap punk duo Bob Dylan have had their visas revoked by the United States and are also under investigation by local police after leading a crowd to chant "Death to Israel's military" at a UK music festival this past week. Well, on Monday, US Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said that the State Department has revoked the US visas for the members of the Bob Dylan band in the light of their hateful tirade at the Glastonbury, including leading the crowd in death chants. Meanwhile, a criminal investigation against the band has also been launched by UK police over the performance at Glastonbury on Saturday. Here's more.
Foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country. Now, we've stated that when it comes to how we vet people, if they are going to be coming here to be helpful, to be nice people, to be great tourists, or if they're coming for other reasons, that every sovereign nation has a right to decide who's going to come to this country.